Hey, what's going on? This is David Greenspan, and you are listening to an all-new Season 3 of the Mindshare Podcast, a proud member of the Industry Syndicate Media Network. Additional podcasts are available at mindshare101.com and on all the major podcast platforms. This week's episode is sponsored by the Buzz Conference and Kits Keep in Touch Systems. Make sure you connect with the Buzz Conference by visiting their website, www.thebuzzconference.com, or by following them on Instagram at The Buzz Conference to keep tabs on all the awesome events they are hosting, including these three upcoming. Number 1, Copywriting for Real Estate on May 14th. Number 2, Buzz Western Canada Connect and Collaborate on May 27th. And number 3, Luxury Connect and Recreation Investment Mixer on June 10. These events are always loaded with value, so be sure to follow the Buzz Conference to stay in the know. And of course, Kits is always with us. Kits offers a fully loaded cross-channel marketing suite for the real estate industry, including tools to help you manage your business, build mindshare, and drive even more sales. You can learn more on my site, mindshare101.com, by clicking on Marketing. I also want to share that we are still working to get to 100 reviews on iTunes, and I want you to be a part of it. If you have already, thank you. If you have not yet, please take 2 minutes to go to iTunes, rate the show, leave a review. It really is that easy. And again, thank you in advance. Today's episode is number 129. He started his career as a teenager in high school and was turned down by a large real estate franchise because of his age. Sitting at the bus terminal, waiting for his bus to arrive, he remembered that a gentleman his father knew owned an independent real estate company. So he walked across the street, knocked on the door, and he met the 73-year-old man who would become his mentor. From there, he went on to become hugely successful as an investor and developer. He's been licensed as an agent since 1988, specializing in residential sales, investments, and developments. He has achieved the highest number of homes sold in Canada since 2017. He's been ranked the top-selling broker in Canada and is presently number 2 in the world for RE/MAX. And he recently published his Amazon best-selling book titled The Real Deal: Journey of a Billion-Dollar Real Estate Broker. This week on the show, I am joined by the top-selling broker in Canada and currently ranked as number 2 in the world for RE/MAX, Faisal Susiwala. Faisal, welcome to the Mindshare Podcast.
Hi, David. How are you?
I am doing well, man. I am, as you can tell, we're jacked to have you here, man.
Great. Well, thanks for that amazing intro. And can we talk about your voice, dude? That is amazing. I want you to be my alarm clock.
That is a new one. Yeah, but can you imagine me yelling at you every morning?
You wake me up like that every morning. I'll be amped.
Hey, man, maybe we just found our calling here. We can, can turn these voiceovers into alarm clocks.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting. You know what? I did have somebody, no joke, I did have somebody at one point say to me, this was probably about 2 years ago. I don't remember exactly how she said it, but she goes, I have to get a bobblehead made of you to put on the dashboard in my car. Just internalize that. You see,
I love it.
Anyway, yeah, man. I started laughing, but then you start getting these crazy ideas. You're like, I wonder what it takes to make bobbleheads. But anyhow, man, no, it's very cool to have you here. Thank you very, very much for making the time. I'm excited to dive into this conversation. I think that I guess I should start by just saying a big, huge congratulations to you. Like that, all the jokes and excitement aside, that is quite the accomplishment. Top selling in Canada, number 2 in the world. Like that's big.
Thank you.
Yeah, good for you, man. But I want to dive into this because we've got our Mindshare Master sitting in our VIP room here today. We've got folks watching us live, and then there's obviously going to be a lot of people that are going to be listening to this after the fact through iTunes and all the major platforms. But I want to give people some background as well here. I love the way that started, where it was like turned down. So we ran into defeat and failure like immediately. We've got all these hopes and dreams of these young kids, and we're kind of going, yeah, the world's my oyster. No, kids, sit down. You're like, whoa, okay, that's a dose of reality. But as a teenager, getting turned down because of your age, I don't know that was the first time you dealt with rejection, but what did you learn from that moment about how to handle being told no? And how did that help you as you move forward to like where you are today?
So in our business, we are faced with rejection every day, and I guess it was a little bit of a blessing that I got that rejection very early on, because we tend to, as parents, as adults, try we coddle, and we like everybody's a winner and everything's okay, and it's still okay, and that was a real dose of reality very early on, and of course I had worked many other jobs and I had tried many other businesses before I got into real estate. Believe it or not, even as a child, I was an entrepreneur. So I had learned the basic, adversities that come along in business, and people telling you no, or go get lost, or the door in the face, or that type of thing that would happen. Now, being told no in that moment, I had two choices. I could give up, or I could persevere and say, okay, what other options do I have? And it just happened, as fate was, that I was sitting at that bus terminal. I remembered that my father's friend had a real estate office right across the bus terminal. And I walked across the street and I knocked on the door, and the rest is, of course, history. And that, just having that one break, that opportunity, but embracing that break and taking that and doing something with it, and not letting that gift that I had been given, the opportunity that I had been given, go to waste. See, giving up is the biggest problem that everyone has. If you give up, you've failed before you even started. And that's where I refuse. And I was obsessed with success. I didn't want success. I was obsessed with it. And there's a very big difference between, giving it lip service and saying, hey, I want to be a successful agent, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. A lot of it was because we were poor. It was poverty. It was a need. I wanted something more for me. I wanted more for my family. I was coming out of a very struggling family environment where, my mother was working in a factory. My father had lost his right arm in an industrial accident. It was a very, very tough times for myself, my brother, my sister. And for me, it was like, that's not going to be my life. The trajectory of my life is going to be different. I was obsessed with success from the age of 12. I had to be the highest selling chocolate bar seller in school, and I talk about this in my book, where that feeling of winning the award for the most chocolate bars sold in the public school was very much the same feeling I received when I got the award in Las Vegas for receiving the award for the most homes sold in Canada. But when you get that taste of success, or you want that and you want to continue with that. And so that's something that I've always, had as part of my life. It may or may not be a good obsession, but I eat, sleep, breathe what I do, and I enjoy what I do. I wake up every morning just ready to embrace the day and see what's going to bring. And I live in gratitude. I'm very grateful for what I have. I came from nothing. So each day that I have something, I'm just feeling so blessed and so grateful. And I thank so many people for the opportunities that they gave me and what I could learn from them.
Wow. I mean, you just shared so many awesome things, and I want to talk about your book more after. It made me think, because I embarked on a book, and as you said, where the drive came from, and part of it was the way you were brought up, and part of it was kind of this thing of being poor. There's a great book. Well, I say great book. I mean, I should say great book publicly here. I have not finished it yet. It's called The Power of Broke. It's written by Damon John, if anybody knows, from Shark Tank. But it's interesting the way you said that, the drive that you've got there from the fact that we didn't have, and then looking at what's going on in the world. I remember my father told me a story one day when he used to run me around to hockey tryouts. And he said, you were dressed, and we used to look in the classifieds in the newspaper, like when the tryouts were. And he took me over to the tryout, and I got cut. And he's sitting there as my dad, oh man, my son got cut. How's he going to feel? How am I going to deal with this as a father? And I mean, as a father, I couldn't imagine watching my son get cut. It's just one of those things, right? But he says, I got cut. And he says, you walked out, you looked at me, you said, Dad, you asked what time it was. You said, we still got time to get to the next rink. And he goes, that's when I realized that you learned to lose. And so it as you were sharing that, it sort of brought up that other part of it. And I think that there's something important about that around, learning to lose, and around having that determination. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the fact that, you eat, sleep, breathe success. Nothing wrong with that, especially when you live in a life of gratitude. And I want to dive into that for a second, because that's one of those things that, Friends of mine from years ago would go, Dave is all about gratitude. And I mean, I will say it, and I've said it many times before, and I'll say it again. I'm all about gratitude. That took time to get into that mindset. But sure, I mean, I could go off about that, but I'd like to ask your opinion and thoughts on that, and maybe to explain a little bit more. When we talk about trying to achieve success and wanting to get there and pushing no matter what to get there, how important is it around setting goals? Because it's one thing to say, I want to be successful. Like we say, everybody wants to be. What are you doing to actually get there? I believe goal setting and gratitude are a big part of that. Can you share with us a little bit more, though, when you said, here's where I'm going, what did that really look like?
Well, a lot of it has to do with not starting with anything. So each day, my goal is to do better than I did the day before, or to have more than I had before, not only for myself, but for my family, for my community, for my circle, for my associates, and when you come from that place of abundance, when you share your knowledge, your wealth, your whatever you have, when you can share that with others, by sharing, you're also receiving that back. And by speaking to people, you're hearing yourself. And those are all things that, help you achieve your goals. Being a part of the community and not looking at community as a source of business, but as a source of belonging, and becoming part of that creates this circle and this sphere. And all of those things start. But when you talk about goal setting, if you can wake up each day and say, okay, I achieved more yesterday, that's allowed me to achieve more today, and then build on that. So every year, I don't look at it and say, oh, I've got to have a better year. I've got to make X amount of dollars this year, or I've got to create this year. I just want to come out further ahead than I was last year. Each day, I want to be further ahead than I was yesterday. I want to add more value to myself and to people around me. And, if you have that mindset, you're really not losing. And, there's going to be peaks and valleys, and there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be defeat, but there's all kinds of things that are going on in our business. And what I've chosen to do is evolve, not stay stuck, not just sort of take one lane and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Look, I started in the business when fax machines were technology. Right. Right. So, a transaction, an offer used to take, 3 days to get done by the time you come back and forth and sign backs. And now we do this on DocuSign, in the car, basically.
Sure.
So, when you look at that, so it's embracing evolution, it's evolving with it, is disrupting the disruptors that are out there right now and embracing them, as opposed to saying, oh, that won't work and this won't work. Well, give it a shot. Let's see what it is. Now get creative with it. Okay, now get creative with what's out there. And that's where you're going to, and I say this in my book, you got to model excellence, not critically, but creatively, adapt it and use those things to your advantage. Add that to your menu of services. So don't say, oh, iBuyers sucks and wholesaling sucks and this sucks. Say, okay, you know what? Here are the options. I can offer you that, but is that the right choice for you? So these are all things. So my goal in life is not just let's make more money. It's like, how can we do better? How can we bring more value? What more can I do to create more value for my clients? By default, it's creating more value for myself.
To all of my listeners who are here on a regular basis, I want you to tap into what Faisal just said, and I want you to think about one of my favorite questions from this podcast, which I'm not going to ask him yet, and he doesn't know what it is. We're going to get to that at the end, but you guys know what I'm talking about here, and he just gave us that answer. And so I just want you to note that one more time here, because when we talk about what success looks like. That was just defined for you, but we'll get back to that, Faisal. So, talking here as we talk, drive and determination. I mean, man, some people are in some serious funks right now from a mindset perspective. I mean, we know a lot of people are having their best years ever. We also know a lot of people, and this is not just the market itself, but this is the bigger picture, just what's going on today in our world. The mindset is not in a good place, I do believe that we make our own choices. And as you've just said, our choices, are we going to wake up in a life of abundance? Are we going to wake up looking to be more successful? Are we going to wake up looking to help other people? Do you have something specific that you look at or the mindset to get up every day and say, I want to do more than I did yesterday? Personally, for me, I know I look at my numbers every single day. So just before I start doing my self-development in the morning, I'm looking at my numbers as well. And I just want to go, what did we accomplish yesterday and where are we going today? And we've literally broken down our like massive lifetime stuff, like right down to like daily increments, which really allows us to break it down to hourly increments. And if I just win my hour, well, I know I'm having a good day. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Are you looking at something on a regular basis to keep pushing you through and that, to keep persisting, like no matter what? Because, hey, top selling broker in Canada, number 2 in the world for rematch. I got to imagine there's still some down days in your world, right?
There are.
Like life is life.
Yeah. So, my goal is, and this is one of the hazards of getting to a point where, you've achieved a good level of success, is like, you don't want to stop. You don't, it's an addiction. It's a drug. You want more of that. For sure. And when you want more of that, you drive yourself to do more. So I don't lift my foot off the gas pedal. So I'm 33 years in the business. I still market as heavily as I did, or I could afford to. And, we could talk about that where, in my earlier days, it was 20% of my income was going towards marketing. Today, with social media and all the tools that we have, I don't have to do that kind of spend. But that's the key, that if you can continuously feed your business, look, we're not running an inventory-based business where I got to stock a retail store with clothing and ties and suits and shoes and whatnot to sell those items. Our inventory is free. You've got to invest in your marketing. So what I'm doing each day is getting up and saying, okay, what can I do right now to be the market leader? What kind of marketing can I do to be how do I use the brand that I'm associated with and become synonymous with my business? And how do I create that following? So this is where I use social media. I use every tool imaginable that will help feed my business, but give me quality of life, where I don't like to door knock. I don't want to pick up the phone and cold call. Look, our business has evolved way beyond that. Our Rolodex is no longer what you have on Outlook or on your software programs. Your Rolodex is your social media. And today's young, I'm old. I'm 51 years old.
You can't call yourself old yet. No way.
But you know what? It frustrates me when I see young people. They're in their 20s. They're on social media posting about the food they're having, but they're not posting anything of quality or of value for their base. Because if they can talk about, now I'm not saying just do all business, but if you can balance that, show your human side, show your fun side, but also show what value you can bring, because that's your passive marketing. When you're out there talking about things you're doing and what you can do, and then talk about real estate and talk about the fun you're having, it's all part, and you become part of another community.
We call it building mind share.
Perfect. There you go.
So here, tell me this then. I'm curious. Do you remember your first deal? Like, do you remember where it came from? Do you remember what you did to get it?
Yes, absolutely.
Tell us about it.
So my first deal came from, I was still in high school. So it was a buddy of mine in high school whose mom and dad had a house to sell, and they felt sorry for me. So they said, okay, kid, like, come and list our house. So that was my first deal, believe it or not. And I didn't even have a sign. In fact, I didn't even have a car. So I was, again, I've talked about this. I was probably the first realtor that got into this business without a vehicle. And I had to borrow my mom's car to get to the listing appointment. And like I said, I used to take the bus. Even my first job interview was taking the bus. But those were little things that I had. And then I had my mentor, Mr. Maneri, who would drive me where I had to go until I saved up enough money, which was actually just 2 months into the business, to be able to go out and buy a vehicle.
Good for you.
Yeah, but that was my first deal.
Well, and amazing how we just brought that back to, building relationships and talking to people we know. And that's where the importance comes from, rather than the marketing gimmick that you pulled off to get that deal, right? So, that leads me right to the next place. And it would say, where does most of your business come from? Even if we talk about sort of the longevity of your career so far in this business to where we are today, would you say that most of the business comes from people we know, people we don't know? What's the mix there?
So I do have a fair amount of business that comes from repeat and referral, but I would say that if I just, hung my hat on that and said, that's all I'm going to do, referrals and repeat business and just work my database, I would do 25% of the business that I do. So I'm constantly growing my database. I'm constantly growing my business. I'm not stopping. Now, I talk about, in the beginning, I was doing 1,000 flyers in a farming area. Then I went to 3,000, then 5,000. at the peak, before I stopped print media for door-to-door flyers, I was doing 30,000 flyers to every 3 weeks to 30,000 homes.
For how long?
Before I did that for 12 years.
For 12 years consistent.
12 years consistent.
That's why it worked though, right?
It did. It's consistency. And you know what? This is nothing I created. I just modeled what people were doing and I got creative with it. When I saw that the top producers in my town were doing, February, March, April, they'd have a massive campaign to get flyers out, and then they get paid all summer. Then they wouldn't do anything all summer. Then they would take a break, and then it was Christmas. So and then they'd ramp it up again. I was consistently doing exactly what they were doing, but it was in mailboxes every 3 weeks, and I just kept expanding that marketplace. Now, my business is coming largely from social media. Okay, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Google Ads, sponsored ads, billboards, buses. I'm doing sort of this macro type of marketing. What I've done is taken what these large brands, what does Coca-Cola do? What does Pepsi do?
Yep.
What does Microsoft, what does Apple do? They have global marketing. Now scale that down. So it's not about scaling it up, scale it down into your market and say, okay, what works for them? They're doing brand marketing. They're doing community marketing. They're doing community farming in a way. They're doing charitable organizations. They're posting, they're popping up on Google, they're popping up on your social media feeds. So how can I localize that into my marketplace? And that's what I started doing. I started studying what those companies were doing, and then I made it adapt to my marketplace.
Very important point that was brought up. I mean, great stuff that you just shared. Very important point was you adapted to your marketplace. And I'm going to spin that another way and say we determined who is our audience, and we tailored the messaging to those people.
Yes.
And that's a big deal because look, you know it and I know it. There's a lot of agents that are coming into the business. As you just said, they'll come in, they'll flyer an area, they'll farm the area, they'll try to do what they can. And if they get a deal from it, it's all of a sudden like everything is good. We don't need to put as much effort. I'll do it again in a few months when I need another deal. The consistency is not there. And therefore, they're spending a lot of money on these big mass marketing channels, but not necessarily getting the returns they're looking for. In your case, when we look at this, we say, okay, you have decided to go down that road, go for the mass big picture marketing, still drill down to a specific audience, a niche that you're talking to. But now it's a matter of going realistically. I mean, it is what it is. You've achieved the success that allows you the opportunity to put the type of budget that's required, the effort and the time into that type of marketing strategy. Right.
It starts small and you grow on it and you reinvest back into it. It's not like you said, hey, I got a flyer call and I sold a house. Great. Let's go buy a car or whatever. Like reinvest that money, keep reinvesting that money, because what happens at some point, and it's happened to me over the last 10 years, actually, where I don't have to pick up the phone anymore. The calls will come to me. People are asking me. And what happens when you become a community leader, when you become a market leader, is that the objections start going away. People are not beating you up on commission. They're not beating you up on, why should I list with you? They're like, would you list my home?
Right.
We would like you to represent.
They want you to be the guy.
They want you. Exactly. You become, again, synonymous with the industry. It's like if I want a pop, I ask for a Coke. Why? Because it's my brand. It's the brand, but I'm asking for a Coke. So in my city, I want people to think real estate. Let's call Faisal. That's what I want.
And again, you've got in my city. This is not every homeowner in the country. This is not everybody and anybody who whatever. This is literally specific right down to an audience. Again,
you can start. I started with my subdivision, 1,000 homes.
Thank you. Very important point there, right? That's the thing, because again, from what you're doing between bus benches and billboards and social media. Again, I don't know the reach. I can imagine it's a large reach. Therefore, the cost that's involved in that is also going to be high. We're not going to get into your details, just private stuff, but more specifically to everybody that's tuned in going, oh, cool, that's how we did it. Again, slow down for a second.
But 20%, like think about this number, 20% of your gross earnings. Remember, guys, you can write that off. So you're not actually spending 20% of your gross income or your net income. You're spending 20% of your gross. So you're going to write that off. That's a fully expensible item. So start investing in your business. Get an assistant. Get an assistant. My business doubled the first year I got an assistant because I could now start sending all of my things to do to that assistant, and you need an assistant who can execute. So having assistants is great, but they've got to be able to execute on what you need done. So, these are all things that you've got to have a proper business plan and it's a business. It's not like, hey, I'm going to wake up, go to the office, have coffee. I see people running around the office from 9 o'clock to 5 p.m. They check in, they have their lunch at noon, they go home at 5. Wrong business to be in if that's what you're into.
Absolutely. No, 100%. It is not a 9 to 5 business, that's for sure. Now, speaking of the business itself, and I want to come back to the market because I think it's important. I've got some other pointy questions to come back to that, but we mentioned off the top broker, investor, and developer. Is most of your time focused on, selling real estate, let's call it, or are you dealing in all three of these arenas every single day? And has one brought you more success than the other? Is this a complete combined effort? Curious about that because again, I noticed off the top, it's not just you're just a realtor.
So my entire day is I'm a listing agent. I list properties. I don't have a team. I have a different system. And, I talk a lot about my system in my book, which is more of a referral network type of an environment as opposed to a team environment. But my day is spent listing properties, managing my listings, doing offers. So the development side, the, plazas, the land development, the construction, what I've done is, and I like to call it multi-level partnering. Okay. I have partnered with people who are specialists in certain industries. Okay. Now I have lots of opportunities, especially in a town like Cambridge, where the market is constantly growing and surrounding area. Years and years ago, I came across a parcel of land. I thought, hey, this is kind of cool, but I didn't have the money to buy it. I checked with a couple of friends of mine. I said, would you guys be interested in investing in this with me? I'm not a developer. I'm not a builder. I'm a sales guy. We hold the land. We bring in a builder. We bring in consultants. We get it to the level. We hand it off to them. Then I come back in on the sales end of it. So what I'm doing is what I know. I have never deferred my focus from what I know. I'm not a builder. I'm not a developer. I'm not a planner. I'm not an engineer. I know what I know and I know what I don't know. And this is why I've only done what I know. I'm good at sales. I'm good at marketing, and I'll stick to that lane when it comes. Now, on an investment side, it's been extremely lucrative. And then, I talk about this in the book as well, that every penny that I've ever made selling real estate, my net worth exceeds that, because I used my income to reinvest not only in my marketing and my branding, but back into what I know, which is land development, which is housing, which is rental properties, which is plazas. And by doing that, you're creating wealth. So you need to monetize your license. Your license is not just I buy and sell. You need to monetize it. How do you monetize it? You create opportunities that license gives you, and you execute on those opportunities, and you bring people in and you show value as to why partnering with you is going to create wealth for them as well, and create, so this is a complete package type of deal that I do. And you're also creating loyalty. You're creating a following. You're creating a spirit. You're going to have a lifetime of clients because they're also your partners in many cases.
So with all this going on then, are you an organized person? Is there a regimen that you follow, a daily DMO, like a daily method of operation, or do you just run and gun as opportunities present themselves? And I mean, seriously, how do you get it all done in a day? Because there's a lot going on there.
Well, I'm going to take zero credit for this. I have fantastic assistants. So I'm useless in the office. In fact, they don't like me to be even here at any given time. I'm like a bull through a China store, right? Yeah. So anyways, I'm good at face-to-face listing presentation, offer presentation in front of the client. That's where, now I'm the thinker. I'm the one that comes up with the ideas. Mm-hmm. They are fantastic in executing what I need them to do. They are fantastic in follow-up. They are there to give me feedback on what's going on in the marketplace, what's going on with every listing. I have my finger on the pulse at all times. I don't let anything slip through the crack, but I'm accountable to them as much as they are to me. I get up at 2 a.m. and I will send emails off to them. I don't wake them up. It goes to the office. But when they come into the morning, it's like they've got 12 things that they've got to follow up on because these are thoughts that came into my mind. As I'm driving my car, I see a for sale sign on something. I dictate that to my office so that they can follow up on it. So how many times have we thought of something and then thought, oh yeah, I'm going to follow up on that later. And then we just procrastinate or we forget or we get caught up in. This is the surefire way of increasing your business, is having somebody there by your side to execute every thought that you have and follow up on every thought that you have. And that is really one of the major secrets to my, I've woken up in the middle of the night thinking about a deal. And then I've actually been able to put that deal together because I acted on it.
I know Leanna's tuned in right now. She's shaking her head going, yep, that's Dave. That's Dave. Thank you, Leanna. Thank you, Mindshare team. But just so tell me this. Oh, I do have a question from one of our Mindshare masters in our VIP room right now. And he wants to know, would you have an assistant here or virtual?
I would have
are your people in house? Are they virtual? How's that working? And let's take this COVID thing out of the way because virtual is a whole different, tone in our world today. But normally speaking, are these folks in the office?
They're 100% in the office. They were in the office throughout the entire COVID. They have their separate offices. We follow all the protocols, but there is something to be said for environment. There is something to be said for the environment you're in, and the energy that's in that environment is so important. I've tried to work from home, but I have a different mindset when I'm in the office. I have a different mindset when I'm not sitting in my pajamas at home trying to do a deal. The way I talk, the way I feel, all of that is different when you're in that environment. So, your surroundings are very important to you, but also collaboration is important. It's important to have people to bounce ideas off of and just have that energy around you. So, I agree a lot with the virtual end of things. There's nothing wrong with it, but at the same time, it's not realistic to say that's the only way, especially in our industry. I think there's importance to have that collaboration within an office space.
So speaking of that, then when it comes to, them helping you, your team helping you work through things and obviously staying on top of things and just staying organized. I think it's going to go without saying when I ask this, but without naming, which, are you using a CRM on a regular to help you keep you organized? And what say you about CRM specifically?
I have used CRMs. I am very much database oriented. So whether it's on Outlook or on a CRM, and again, without naming any names, I find a lot of the CRMs, they're very templated and they're very, you've got to really work with it and it's got to sound like you. So, sending out a generic type of newsletter or something that's not relevant in what's going on right now, you're kind of wasting an opportunity. So, and you probably will lose that following. So what I say is do all of that. Send those newsletters out. That's important because you need to keep your audience informed. You need to let people know that you're thinking about them, but also get into different ways of contacting, which could be engagement through social media, which is something I'm very big on. I respond to every single social media comment, good or bad. Personally, I don't outsource that. I have a social media person that takes care of a lot of my postings, but everything that comes back, any engagement that happens, it's me personally because I'm keeping in touch. So, there's more ways to keep in contact with your database than simply being on a CRM and automating it and hoping it all works out. So the content is very important.
Okay. And I really like the way you tied that in together there. And for everybody that thinks about, I've got to up my social media strategy. I got to get more involved with people. I want to build more mindshare out there. What Faisal said was really important there. And this is something that we hear from a lot of very successful people around getting engaged with the individuals that engage with you. To have somebody else do that on your behalf. My favorite line, one of the many, it's like sending somebody to go to a party for you. It doesn't make sense. So when somebody's engaging with you and they're commenting on your post or they're asking a question, get involved. There's your opportunity to shine some light on your personality, shine some light on the service you guys provide, the UE, the user experience when they come to you. What kind of experience are they going to have working with you? And then what are they going to go and tell everybody that they know about working with you? Right. So that was a great point that you brought up there. Going back for 1 second here to the team and the admin and the assistant, because you also, as you said, this is where our next level of growth comes from. And I completely agree with you. We think we can manage it all. Until we get to that next level, we never really realize that, wow, we couldn't really manage it all the way we did, or we weren't able to grow to that next level. However, this is your typical chicken before the egg, cart before the horse, whatever. Should I hire? Shouldn't I hire? I don't know if it's the right time to hire. Again, I guess what caused you to finally pull the trigger? And maybe what would you say to anybody who's thinking about it and kind of teetering, going, should I get this admin right now or not?
So about 19 years ago, my son was born and he was 6 months old. And I really wanted to spend more time at home. So what I would do is I would work all day, right through to the night till about 9 p.m. And then I'd go home and then I'd try to catch up on paperwork, and I'd try to get in early to catch up on paperwork. So I was missing out. And this was 6 months in. I was missing out on the time I want to spend with it. And I'm thinking, I had a very successful career leading up to that. And that was 20 years ago. So I had been in the business 13 years already. And I thought, what's that success if I don't have quality of life? What's that success if I don't get to spend time? And I spent years, especially being a young person in the business, working with 50-year-olds and 60-year-olds when I was 18. And I would always hear them say, you know what? Spend time with your kids. Our kids don't know us. And that really resonated with me. It really didn't hit me though, until my son was born. And I'm like, you know what? I'm becoming that guy that's not spending time at home. Luckily, I was 30 years old. I was still young in that I could do the things that I want to do. I wasn't 60 years old regretting my life. My son was only 6 months old. And at that point, I said, okay, this needs to stop. This cycle needs to stop. I'm going to burn out. I'm not getting anywhere doing it this way. I'm resenting what I'm doing. I'm not enjoying what I'm doing anymore. So I basically stole the front staff. Don't do this because you'll get in trouble from your brokerage. But the receptionist at the front desk, she was a lovely young lady, and she was a hard worker, and she was working part-time. And I said, hey, listen, you don't need to go to college. You got to come work with me. And I said, I can't give you a lot of hours. I'm only going to promise you 2 hours a day just to do some paperwork for me. So I'll give you, 10, 12 hours a week, and you keep working at the front desk. I can tell you right now, starting week 2, she hasn't worked less than 50 hours a week since that day. And she quit her job at the front desk. She worked for me full time. She's still with me today. And her name is Jennifer. And I'll tell you, that was in life, you're going to have turning points.
Turning points.
Right. And that was a turning point for me. That was a turning point. I'm like, wow, I just stumbled across the best thing that's ever happened. I have now a life. I can delegate. I can tell someone, here, I need this done. And it gets done magically. I come in next day. I'm fresh. I'm happy. I know what I have to do. I'm useless in the office. My desk was a mess. Now I can focus on what I do. And, you clear your mind because you don't have all this other noise around you.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, hopefully she's listening to this particular part of the show right now.
Oh, I'm going to have to give her a raise.
So, hey, how many people are on your team now?
So I have 3 full-time assistants that work for me. They're not licensed. They don't do any of the items that a licensed agent is supposed to do. So Jennifer is my personal assistant. She handles absolutely everything. Then I have Alicia, who handles all of my listing, my research, my CMAs, my feedback, my follow-up, all of that. Then I have a bookkeeper that handles all the accounting end of things. And then I have professionals. I have accountants. I have social media people. I have all of those. So what I've done is I've learned to delegate. Yep. And, we think we're spending money, but you're actually making money by delegating.
You really are, man.
And that's the secret right there, is that you have to spend it to make it.
Well, you don't know. I mean, I'll tell you, this is the same question that comes up all the time around, folks that want to coach. People that have been coached go, I swear by it. People that have never been coached go, I've heard great things, but I'm just not sure. In fact, do you have a coach, or have you been coached? Like, is that something that you embarked in? Because you said about a mentor.
Right.
Off the top.
You know, and guys like you didn't exist 20 years ago, unfortunately. And I wish you did, because here's why. The mistakes that I had to make, and a lot of it is just accountability. Having a coach creates this accountability. You know that this is what's expected of you. So I believe in coaches. I believe in mentors. I believe in both, but it's important that you choose the right people who are in tune. Here's why I didn't have a coach, and I'll tell you why. And here's why I didn't have a mentor that was working with me or someone that I was accountable to. We would go to these raw events at these sales rallies, and all the brands have them. And you would listen to someone that was in real estate 20 years ago who retired, telling you a script on what you need to say when you walk in. And I'm thinking, wow. And this is 20 years ago. I'm thinking, how old is this guy? And when was he doing that? And how did he, like, this is Glenn Ross.
Glenn Ross.
Right? Like, how does that even work? And I'm like, there's no way. I would leave halfway. It's like, oh, you got a door knock. You got to do 100 calls a day. I'm like, no, that's not for me. And then they would try to sell you on their program. Yeah. Well, I wasn't interested in that. So for me, it was life coaching more than business coaching. So I had to, Tony Robbins, huge follower, I would just eat that up. I went to all these seminars because I had to change my mindset. I had to be in
that gratitude, that abundance, right?
Exactly. And there's a lot that gets thrown at you at these things. You take what feels comfortable. You take what feels right. And you're not, you've got to be your authentic self. And that's one of the things, when I go on a listing presentation, it's not about, I don't have a script. I have a conversation.
Yep.
I learn about them. I'm going to be part of their family for a week or 2 weeks. So let me learn about them. And then, you've heard of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. You start adapting to what their likes are, but you're genuine about it. You're not faking anything. You're genuine about it. You're having conversation, and you're talking in a way that they can relate to you, and you talk about things that resonate with them.
Well, it comes back to the whole idea around relationship, right? And that's really what it is. It's about talking to people about things that will resonate with them. It's funny you bring up NLP. I've actually got Katie Ramignolo. I don't know if you know Katie. Yes. Who's going to be on the show next week with us talking about that. So it's we're looking forward to that conversation, because I'm big on that neuroscience about how the mind works and why people are making the decisions they make. And I am so with you about scripting. I get the question all the time. Have you got scripts for this, scripts for that? I go, you don't ever use a script, because you'll never sell a guy like me.
No,
it won't happen. And if I know you're using a script, I'm going to run you in circles just to have fun with you to see when you're going to trip. Right. Perfect. It doesn't work. I remember having a conversation with a lady one day. She says to me, I signed onto this program. And I said, why? She goes, well, they give you a bunch of cue cards. I said, cue cards for what? She goes, well, it helps you figure out what to say. I'm like, you need a cue card to figure out what to say? So you're going to come to the listing presentation and look at the card while you're talking to me?
Yeah.
Well, what do you think that's going to do for you? Anyways, that's a whole different sidebar. But as we sort of continue the conversation around, what it takes to achieve the levels that you've achieved. And I continue to kind of stay on this theme around marketing and building mind share. And we've talked about some of the channels that you use between social and reaching out to your database, and then the big mass push that we've done through this almost Coca-Cola type of strategy, which is phenomenal when you can get to that level to be able to do it. I'm curious to know, because I've been seeing over the past, I don't know, I'd say 12 months for sure, could be even 24, this sort of, dare I say, flattening the curve, but the bell curve for online lead gen, where we saw the influx of it over a number of years. We saw the flatten out, and now we've actually seen the drop in it, where there's a lot of people going, nah, and they're almost calling BS on this stuff, going, where are all these random leads coming from? As you are doing a big mass push out there, I imagine that you do run ads. I guess the question might be, what's your take or maybe advice to people about, hey, should I run ads on social media, or should I run ads on Google? And I'm going to come back to the fact that most people do not have the budget to be able to do all of the pieces they need to do to support when they're going to go ahead and say, run ads online. So I guess the question there is, like, do you believe in that stuff? But more so even, what does it actually take to make that stuff come to life? And what should people know about it?
Right.
Because I think it's sucking a lot of money from people and a lot of time and effort. And there's not enough focus on the database per se. See, I'm not against anything, I'm going to look and say, if your business comes from your database for the most part, and if you haven't got this massive budget to go out to the masses, Coca-Cola strategy, let's zero in on where business comes from first. Let's build on that. Let's then start to take and scale up.
Okay. So let me expand on this. Yeah. So take your database, take your Rolodex, take your Outlook, take whichever CRM you have. Now, there's no easy way to upload it, but I'm going to use the word upload.
Yep.
Take those names, friend everybody you know on social media, Facebook, but more importantly, Instagram.
Yep.
Put everybody from your database into Instagram, follow them, ask them to follow you back. Now, that's your posting daily, one post per day. You want lead gen? There you go. That's number one lead gen.
So we didn't pay for anything. All we've done is connected with the people.
You've done nothing.
That's engaged in the conversation.
Exactly. When little Johnny gets his first goal, you make sure you congratulate little Johnny, right? So these are the things that now you don't need to have this sort of set guideline. Oh, I got to send a Christmas card. I got to send an Easter card. Like, do those things, but you don't have to think about it, because each day when you post something, you're instantly engaging. I think I have 5,000 people on my Instagram. Each day when I post something, I know that those 5,000 people have the choice of looking at what I'm doing. I'm going to show up in their feed. Now, I take it one step further. I sponsor some ads. Your budget in the beginning, okay, will be greater than your budget later on. This is something that's magical about social media. Your spend goes down as your organic reach increases. Your paid advertising will go down as your organic. And now, how do you get organic? When you have a good social media following, you're not only creating a lead generation, you're creating advocates. Those are people that are going to share, they're going to like, they're going to refer, they're going to do all these things. Now, when they share on their platforms, you're getting engagement on that as well. You're getting comments. Some are good, some are bad. It doesn't matter. It's all good because it's engagement. It's more marketing. So that's one thing.
But it's call also, it mind share. Sorry.
Mind share again. Yeah, little plug here.
Sorry, keep going.
But all those things, what you're doing is you're creating this following, right? Now you're creating this following. Those are all people that are going to eventually engage with you somehow. Now, that's your social media marketing, okay? And you do that on YouTube, you do that on LinkedIn, you do that on Twitter, everywhere. But for me, Facebook and Instagram are my number one and two.
I was about to ask, what's your favorite and why? Yeah, okay.
Instagram is my favorite by far. I don't engage a lot on Facebook.
Okay.
Because Facebook, anybody that's liked your page, you're going to get all kinds of comments. Every time I post something that $200,000 oversold, I get annihilated, which is fine because it creates conversation, right? The buyers hate me, sellers love me. I want the sellers. Great, let's do it, right? So now when you look at Instagram, you get quality conversations, I will say. Because those are people that have asked to follow you. Now, mine's open. You don't have to ask. If you want to follow me, just go ahead and follow me.
Likewise. Which on that sense, I'm going to share that with everybody right now. That is my advice to everybody. Exactly. Make sure that your Instagram is open. If you're having this thing about my privacy, look, the line between personal and business is gone. Now you need to let people in. Faisal said it. I've said it to you before. Authenticity matters, right? Yes. People being able to create that connection. So if your account, like I tell everybody all the time, if you follow me, I'll follow you, right? Yep. But if your account is private, I will not follow you because I don't know who you are. I don't know what I'm following. I don't know why.
Exactly.
Right? So open it up and make it, open to everybody to connect.
Yes, absolutely. Now that's your social media platform.
Mm-hmm.
Your number two platform here, when we talk about lead generation, the biggest mistake that realtors make is every time they get a lead generation company contact them, they're like, yes, sign me up. Here's my email. Here's my phone number. Here's my whatever. Sign me up. Accept. I accept all the terms and conditions of everything you're saying. What you've just done is you've signed away your 50%, 25% of your commission forever to these companies. But what you've also done is when a consumer Googles Faisal Susiwala, and I'm on 15 different lead gen sites, you know what's going to happen? My name's not going to come up, the lead generation site. So I'm buying back my own leads. And that's the biggest mistake that realtors make. They think I'll go on every site so that one way or another, something's going to stick. But what they've done is they've just given their name away to everybody. And now, unless you're very powerful on your own platform and in your own web page, and you've got a good ranking, when you type in, like I can say this with confidence, if you type in my name right now, you're going to get my name. You're going to get my website, because I'm constantly engaging. I'm loading videos. I'm loading content. I'm loading blogs. When you're doing that, your ranking is going to be higher. Now, that lead generation company is taking advantage of you because they're using your algorithms to give them more hits. So don't sign up with many. I have one.
So you would say one is okay.
One, okay. But research which one.
Right.
Make sure that you're only associating yourself with one that works. Try it out. And if it doesn't work, cut the cord fast, because you don't want to.
The next step is all you've gotten is a lead. Now it's about converting the lead.
Yes.
This comes back to what is your follow-up process? And I mean, I'd ask you in the same light, share more about your thoughts on follow-up and the importance of it. And then much the same, are you focused on calling your actual database on a regular basis to try to generate the leads from there rather than just from the strangers?
Right. So yes, but I'm not calling them. I'm doing community support, community farming, and I'm doing marketing through. So, on the anniversary of their home purchase, they get a lottery ticket in the mail with a handwritten note saying, "I hope you win and pay off your mortgage," type thing.
So something physical and tangible that looks like you actually did it, which you did.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. And here's the beauty. In today's cyber age, receiving a handwritten card, that's a novelty now. Oh, it's kind of exciting when I see somebody who took the time to write an envelope. That's right. That's great. And
we've
that's
lost the art of that.
Exactly.
We really
so
have.
those are important things to do. But when it comes to lead generation from the lead gen companies, you got to be very careful to make sure you know the terms and make sure they're not just cold leads. Now, when you get a lead from one of those, don't simply say, "Well, give me." I get probably 4 or 5 leads a day coming from one of the lead gen companies that I use, and it's like, "Here's my address. Here's my email. Here's my phone number. I just want to know what my home is worth." What do 95% of us do? "Well, I like to have an appointment. I like to come and see you. I like to do this. I like to do that." Wait, what do? I send them the value. Shocking. I send them the value. The ad says, "Do you want to know what your home is worth?" The consumer says, "Yes, I do." When you do the whole bait and switch, you've lost right there. You've annoyed them. You've upset them. So what I'm doing is I'm giving them a value. I get my girls to do the geo search. I get the address. I get the information. I get the comps on the street. And I say, "This is approximately what I feel their home is worth." Let them know if they want an accurate evaluation. I'll be happy to come and visit them. Yeah. Now what I've done is I've created a little bit of an engagement with them where they're saying, "This guy's not just looking to get into my house or get a listing. He's actually giving me the value. I asked for it and he gave it to me."
Yeah.
Which is shocking to most. And I get a ton of business coming back to me saying I was the only agent who didn't annoy them by calling them and asking them for more information. I gave them what they asked for.
So what we're saying here is the key to follow up when it comes to these leads is to really serve up what you said you'd serve up as quickly as you can. Let them come back and say, "Hey, can I have more?"
And in 6 months, you follow up with another email saying, "Hey, by the way, the market has done this since the last time I sent you the information." Yep. You've just created this massive database. I'm talking 4 to 5 a day. Okay. That's hundreds of people that are in your database now that every 6 months you should be giving them a market update on what's happening. Send them something of value saying, "Look, you know what? Interest rates are going up. Interest rates are going down. Stress is coming. Market just went up 18% in the last quarter." This is now you've got engagement with these people. These are people that now are going to look to you for advice.
Well, it's the same thing. What you're doing is you're essentially building a relationship with these people, no matter where they came from. And I mean, I think that's been a very underlying tone as well about how you operate. Sending the car, sending the lottery tickets, giving people the answers they're looking for right away. Engaging with people, responding to people on social media. It all comes back to working to build a relationship with each individual who comes across your path. Where that goes, we don't know. But if it's one day at a time, we're grateful for the fact that they came in, and we are persistent no matter what happens, and we keep plugging away and putting in the effort, build those relationships, good things will happen.
Yes.
Knowing what you know now, What advice would you give to a brand new agent who's just stepping in or just stepped in, somebody brand new in the business? What would you tell them right now?
Okay, so a lot of team leaders don't appreciate me saying this, but I'm going to say it anyways.
Yep.
Brand yourself. Do not be under the shadow of a leader. Because 5 years from now, you're going to start wanting to do business yourself. You're going to want to sign on someone's front lawn. You're going to want that advertising, that marketing, and no one's going to know who you are. And you've exhausted all of the people, your friends and family. Like I said, when I started off, my first lead was a friend, a high school friend who told his parents. Why are you giving that away? You know what? Get a mentor, get a coach. You don't need that mentor or coach to be your team leader who's going to take 50% of your commission. Again, I apologize to the team leaders. They may not like me saying this, but I'm going to be honest with you. This is why I don't have a team. I'm a lead generator for 6 people in my office. They only work with buyers. They don't work with sellers. They have their own business. They have their own billboards. They have their own buses. They have their own park benches. They do their own flyers. They have their own social media. I will finance their brand and their ability to grow because by default, they're benefiting me.
Right.
You give to get.
Okay. So the advice to the new agent would be work to build your brand, be confident in the fact that you will have the success as long as you put in the effort. Yes. So now let's go. And, you sort of said it is like, well, in 5 years, you're going to want to. So now what would you say to somebody who's been in the business 5 to 10 years who, hey, they're in, it's not, they're not part-time at all or anymore. They're full-time agents. They're 5 to 10 years in. They're, things are going well, but it hasn't caught that wave yet. They haven't had that success they've been looking for yet. What would you say to them to get to the next level?
So I'm going to ask them, what have they been doing up to date? Like, what have they done so far? Did they do all those things? Did they brand? Did they invest 20% of their income every year back into their business? Did they engage socially? Did they sign up with lead gen? Did they get a coach? Did they have a mentor? Like, why haven't they done? So, and I said this at the outset. Do you just want to be successful or are you obsessed with success?
Yes.
Right? Because if you're obsessed with success, you're not going to be 5 years in this business saying, hey, well, I've given it a good shot. Let's see what I can do now. You're going to say, what's gone wrong? If I'm obsessed with it, I'm going to go get it.
Well, that takes me right back now, full circle to where I was before. I said I would ask you the question, and you somewhat answered it before, but I'm going to now ask it because it is something that I love to ask. And you provided a wonderful answer earlier on. You didn't even realize you stepped in that, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. How do you know it's been a successful day for you?
It's been a successful day for me when I can honestly look at myself and I say, I did my absolute best. I may not have closed the deal that day, but I can honestly say to myself that I put out a complete effort. I did the best that I could. I was honest. I didn't take away from anyone. And, when I come home at night, and honestly, this is the God's honest truth here. When I pull up to my home, the home that I built, a home of my dreams that I never thought I could afford. Okay. And when I pull up to that, I have such gratitude in my heart that, thank God for everything I have had. So it doesn't matter the defeat or the failures that I may have faced that day. I'm going to go home to a happy family, to a healthy family, in a beautiful home. And I didn't do anything wrong to anybody to get there.
You see how it goes full circle. So off the top, you mentioned about help and effort and determination, and again, abundance and gratitude. You essentially said very similar things in what you just shared there of coming home and knowing, looking at your family. And Faisal, my father was a broker owner for the first 20 years of my life, man. I remember driving around to open houses and waiting for him to go in and do his showings and, everything. I mean, black and white MLS tear sheets. Yes, I remember those, right? Typewriters, whiteout. I remember it all. And I mean, I also know the time that he was away from maybe a baseball game or a hockey game or just not there. Or we were always like, Dad's always on the phone. So when you said that too, of making that realization of wait, I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to be that guy. I did that for myself as well. And it was, I'm not going to be that guy. It's, my kids are going to be, and not to take anything away from my father, he loves us to death and he puts everything into us. It's not about that. It's more that time that we spend is recognizing that. So how can I structure my days and my world around being able to do that? And part of that to me is a big part of success. Another thing that you had said there was, knowing that I didn't do wrong to anybody today, which is also another way to say that you were kind to people and you helped other people. And that's where I wanted to share this with you of I've been asking this question a lot to a lot of successful individuals in our industry. How do you know it's been a successful day? And there's not one person who calculates success based on dollars or deals. It's got nothing to do with money. And these are, again, your super successfuls. That's what you get from them. And it's whether I'm fortunate as I am today. And again, thank you for having the opportunity to interview you. It's people that I listen to when I'm reading, and my mentors and the books that I study and everything else, and listening to what really brings success. And again, as we all really want success, what are you truly doing to achieve it? It comes back to, how are you helping others? How are you doing good every day in the little bit that we can to just serve the bigger power of whatever it is that at some point, if we do, reciprocity says it should come back. But we don't do it with the anticipation of coming back. We just do it to do it. So I love the answer that you brought up there.
Sure. David, I just want to add to that.
Yeah.
That there comes a point and it came to me in my business where my mindset became hard set. I stopped thinking so much with my head about things, and I started thinking with my heart. So when I was sitting with a family and they were in a situation or they were stuck in a circumstance, it wasn't about, okay, what's my head telling me to do right now? If you want to be your genuine self, you start shifting into heart set and you say, what's my heart saying right now? What should I do for these people right now from my heart, as opposed to what my head's telling me to do? And when you shift to that, it's amazing the transition that happens in your business, because you're not thinking about money anymore.
Yeah,
the money is just an unintended consequence. It just happens because you've just become so genuinely involved in every transaction that you're not thinking about the money. You're not thinking with your head about any of that stuff. You're just thinking, how can I do something of value? How can I make these people's lives better?
This is that same thing that we started with today around rejection, right? Like we go in for a deal every single day, but the reality is we're not getting a deal every single day. So if every day instead we think to ourselves, how can I help other people? It's amazing how all of a sudden the deals start to come in, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Faisal, what last words, tips can you share for everybody who is tuned in to help themselves get out there and build more mind share? I mean, what would you say is even the key to building like a long-lasting, resilient, billion-dollar producing real estate business?
It's interesting. One of the questions that people always ask is, what's your why? What's your why? Right. And you know what? Okay, I get it. What's your why? Why do you do what you do? I've always come back with, ask how. Forget what's your why. Just ask how. How do I get there? What do I need to do to get there? And when you start thinking along not what I want or how I'm or what is my why am I doing what I'm doing? You start asking a question, how am I going to get to where I want to get? And why am I doing those things? But how am I going to get there? And when you start figuring out how, that's when you're going to achieve true success. And how is by watching others. Nothing I've ever done in my life is a creation or something that, authentic to me. It's just following successful people and their habits and implementing them in a genuine way to my own life. And that's what works.
This has been awesome. I could keep rapping with you about this stuff today. This is a conversation that I thoroughly enjoy in terms of just mindset, gratitude. I said it at one point in today's show. Again, for me, that was a major mindset shift that I had a number of years ago. And I will tell you, and I will tell everybody, major, like underline, bold that, exclamation mark, caps locks, you name it. major mindset. And I mean, it changes the way you wake up in a day. It changes how you operate in a day, changes the energy you bring to what you do in a day. It changes how you lay your head down at night, changes what you dream about while you're sleeping. I mean, it's all amazing stuff. So this has been very awesome. Faisal, where can people find you? And just as important as finding you, where can they find your book?
Okay, great. So they can find me on social media at Faisal Susiwala, just my name, at Faisal Susiwala on home. And then there's homeshack.com, which is my webpage. And the book is, I'm going to do a shameless plug here.
Do it. No, it's not shameless. Do it for sure.
That is, it's on Amazon. It's on Audible. It's on Kindle. So anywhere, if you've got Amazon, that's where you can go and get it. There's also a website called therealdealbook.ca. You can order it on there, but whichever, or contact me directly and be happy to send one out to you as well.
That is awesome, my friend. This has been an insightful, enlightening conversation today. I seriously, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I am very, very grateful that you took the time to share with us and our Mindshare audience here today. Of course, if there's anything that I can help you with or our community can help you with at any time, never hesitate to reach out. But Faisal, once again, thank you very, very much for joining us on the Mindshare podcast today.
David, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and this was a lot of fun. Thank you.
You're either listening to this on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify. Or maybe you downloaded our free Industry Syndicate podcast app. Or maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. And while you're on my site, make sure to download your free copy of the Ultimate Marketing Bundle for Realtors. This is a 31-page ebook packed with a ton of tips and tricks for you. Plus, there's a ready-to-go 90-day social media content calendar to help you build more mindshare so that you can get more market share. And if you want to talk about personalized one-to-one coaching to help you get to your next level, just get in touch with me. We'll set up a free consultation call, learn more about what you're looking to achieve, and well, how I will help you do just that. And don't forget, our push to 100 is on, so be sure to please go to iTunes, subscribe to the show, rate us, and leave a review. And of course, if you haven't yet, connect with me on Facebook at Mindshare101 and on Instagram at DavidGreenspan101. I want to once again thank Virginia Munden and the Buzz Conference for sponsoring today's episode. Make sure you connect with the Buzz Conference by visiting their website, www.thebuzzconference.com, or by following them on Instagram at the Buzz Conference to keep tabs on all the awesome events they are always hosting, including 3 great ones coming up. I also want to thank Kits Keep in Touch Systems for sponsoring today's episode. If you haven't checked us out yet, just go to my site, mindshare101.com, and click on Marketing. This has been another episode of the Mindshare Podcast. Thank you for tuning in.